All right, good morning, everyone. It's Positive Tuesday today, August 23rd, 2022. As you may have guessed, Ben and Fitzy have the day off today, and my co-host this morning is my good friend, Polk County Sheriff Brent Waak. I want to thank you for joining us for today's show. I'm Kirk Anderson, and you're watching Positive Tuesdays presented by Professional Exteriors and Interiors. With nearly 20 years of experience, this locally owned and operated business has provided quality work in roofing, garages, siding, window installations, kitchen and bathroom remodels, vinyl and hardwood flooring, and they can even build your house or business from the ground up. Like Fitz and Ben, I believe it's the little things that make a big difference. So give them a call today at 715-520-2271. Positive Tuesdays is also brought to you in part by Wisconsin Lakes Team. It's still a great time to buy or sell a home, and when you do, we recommend our friends from Wisconsin Lakes Team. Anyone can say that they're an agent, but not everyone treats their clients as they would like to be treated. And that's what Aaron and Katie do. Find out what they can do for you by visiting lakesteamwi.com. Also supporting the show are our friends at Industrial Safety. We all know that Industrial Safety sells and services practically everything that goes onto a fire station or on a firefighter, but they also provide kitchen suppression system maintenance, inspection, and installation. For more information about this service and to see a list of all their available services, visit their website at industrialsafetystore.com. All right, I'm going to turn out that music, and I want to welcome my good friend, Brent Waak, who's the Sheriff of Polk County, and it is Positive Tuesdays. I'm excited to be here. Again, my name is Kirk Anderson. I'm the mayor in St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin. I'm a good friend of the show and have been a co-host with Ben and Fitzy a number of times. And Ben and Chris Fitzgerald wanted to have a day off, so they invited me to come and have a conversation with Brent. So Brent, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here, and I think we have a lot to talk about.
Thanks, Kirk. Yeah, it's great to be here, filling in for Ben and Fitzy, and we're the B team. They're the A team, so we'll take off.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's just in the spirit of Positive Tuesday. If you have something positive to share about what's going on in your life, feel free to let us know what's going on.
Well, yeah, I'm all refreshed. I had a nice family vacation last week, so it's back to reality this week. But the positive is it was nice to kind of get away. Did the family camping trip down to Tennessee, and feel good to be back.
Awesome. I had a positive week as well. Yesterday was my middle daughter's 13th birthday, so we added another teenager to the kids. It's now 3 to 2. And then I have a 11-year-old now in the house. My son turned 11, and so of my 5 kids, we have 3 teenagers and 2 younger than teens, and life is busy. But we had a lot of fun, and hopefully they're enjoying. Looking forward to school starting this next week. That'll be another positive, I think. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind for a lot of politicians that have been running, and you know that we had the. Can you turn your audio up? I can. You have gone through a primary, but you didn't have an opponent. So can you bring us up to speed on your election and where you stand for November?
So I'm fortunate, as most of the surrounding sheriffs here, including, I think, Barron County, St. Croix County, Dunn County, Burnett County, most of us are unopposed. So I always say that's because we're doing such a great job, or is it because nobody wants our job? And I think it's probably that one. But I'm very fortunate, to kind of if you want to say coast. But I was told when I ran last time that your next election starts the day after you're elected, and your duty is to always be out there and be in the public and be up front. And I've tried to do that. And so I have treated this year very much like it was an election year. I've done a lot of events. I do a lot of speaking events. We do a lot of outreach. We just had a fantastic, and this is another positive thing. Our National Night Out was a few weeks ago, and that's a great opportunity to showcase a lot of community partners and law enforcement. We have great turnout for that. So with having an unopposed election, I guess where it probably helps you the most is it helps your pocketbook a little bit. But ultimately, it's business as usual. We're out there. We're trying to get our message out there and stay in touch with our public.
So you've got some friends that you've been supporting in their elections, and from the primary perspective, how did some of your friends that you endorsed fare?
Well, I would say, you see a lot of someone's true character when they face adversity. And I had endorsed Adam Jarko. Adam's a friend of mine. He's a great community person for Polk County over here, and I was happy to endorse him. And unfortunately, he didn't come out on top. But he's a very classy individual, and immediately threw his support behind the candidate that beat him. And I think that speaks volumes of his character. And in general, that's how a politician has to be. I mean, our jobs are on the line with this. You're fighting because you want to see something better for your community. And when you don't get that opportunity, I think you want the next person to carry that torch.
I think it's really interesting in a statewide race, and I don't know the total vote count, but it was a full statewide race, and that particular race came to within 3,000-ish votes, which is incredibly close, like half a percentage point. And I think that had there not been a third party or a third individual in that race in this area, that probably Adam would have come out on top just based on the locations. But Adam's a good friend of mine as well, and endorsed him and thought that he did a great job in his campaign. And I think he might be a little relieved to get back to work in his businesses and take some time to enjoy his family as well. What about your pick for the governor and lieutenant governor? Any surprises there?
I didn't have any endorsement for the lieutenant governor, and that was there was a lot of candidates for that race.
Right.
With governor, I thought Rebecca Clayfish would have been a great governor candidate, but honestly, I liked all of the candidates. The reason I picked her is I have frequently met with her as she's come to Polk County regularly. And I will always say this: a lot of the Madison politicians feel that Wisconsin ends at about Eau Claire. And for someone to pay attention to the North Woods up here, I always try to endorse and support those candidates that will actually come up here and be visible and give us some attention, because we're just as much vital to this state as any other entity. And so she was my pick, and she did lose the race. So I guess the moral of this is don't have Brent Waak endorse you. That will ensure a victory.
Yeah, no, that's it's really neat to see those candidates come up to Polk County. I know that on both sides of the aisle for both Republicans and Democrats, probably the best opportunity to see them is during election time, and during the pre-campaigns, I saw a lot of Republicans that came up to do stump speeches and things like that. So I think it's a good opportunity, and I think that Michaels will do well as the governor's candidate in November, and wish him well as in his bid for election. And he'll have a tough fight. I know that there's a lot of money involved in those campaigns. Running for mayor, I think my total budget was $250. That's not going to cut it in a statewide race. There, talking about millions and millions of dollars. And it's time to shut your phone off and move forward with with your life and try and avoid all the commercials on TV. Speaking of elections, though, you were elected 4 years ago to sheriff in Polk County, and you had some goals that you wanted to really hit hard coming right out of the gate. And I remember one of the first things that you did as sheriff was bring up some cold cases that were a big deal in the Polk County Sheriff's Department. There were two specific cases. One was a hit and run where two individuals on the reservation in Polk County were killed, and one was a missing person. Both are in the news again, and maybe you want to just bring the two updates on those two cases and let people know what's going on.
Yes, well, that was one of the goals. And, these cases are tough on a community because people want answers. And so we set those goals. And I'm very fortunate. Like I say, I have a dedicated staff in this building that really take these cases serious, and they work very hard. And Sunday marked the 13th anniversary of the disappearance of Rose Bly in our community. And so in 2019, we produced a video hoping to generate some conversation and to get some more leads going, and we were successful in doing that. We've had hundreds of tips come in, and then also that family has another missing person from down in Tennessee, and that
Right.
really kind of jump-started our case as far as tips coming in and people paying attention to our case. In fact, yesterday I talked to another media outlet that called just to follow up, and I'm really excited when I see the media. They watch this stuff. They're not just living for the moment, that they actually must have a calendar where it says, hey, the 21st of August is the Rose Bly disappearance, so let's check in on that case. So it's a good opportunity for us. I can tell you we work every week on that case. Those cases are not by any means sitting idle. We work very hard on it, and sometimes we get tips that lead us off the path we'd like to go, but we still have to look at every one of those tips, and it might be nothing, but it might be that big break. So we don't have a lot of new info on that, and there's a lot of things I can't mention about the case because it is an ongoing investigation.
Yeah.
But we're hoping to bring closure to that one. That would be great.
Yeah, I shared the video yesterday, just reminding people, because Rose Marie Bly was from the St. Croix Falls area. She went to high school here, and her family was from here, just north of the city of St. Croix Falls. And what a tragedy! What a tragedy that we face, and it still bothers a lot of people. It's still haunting. In fact, if you walk through downtown St. Croix Falls, on some of the billboards, you'll still see some of the original flyers that are still on the bulletin boards after many years. And so kudos to the Sheriff's Department in doing that. Now, you're working with, obviously, other agencies. This missing family member was a young girl in Tennessee, I believe. Are you dealing with like the FBI, or who do you deal with when you're talking about case details and things like that?
Yeah, when that case first started, we were having regular talks with the FBI to see if there was anything that our case could help that case down there, if there was any interconnections there, but also in Tennessee officials. So it's, when 9/11 happened, there was a lot of criticism of law enforcement for not communicating well. And I can say that I think that's what's improved a lot in the last 20 plus years or so, is there is a good open line of communications. We work well with the other agencies, and if our case can help them, we certainly are willing to do that. The other case you mentioned, Kirk, is special because we did bring closure to that double hit and run involving the Round Lake community. And I think what's neat about that case is it's strengthened the relationship with the tribal members and the sheriff's office here. I think we've built a good trust bridge again, and I think we will work well together if we ever have, God forbid, we ever have any more tragedies or big cases. I think we will work well together, and that's important.
Yeah. So when you say you brought closure to that, that was another one that you created a video, and that video was widely shown. Um, it was shown basically on social media, but then also the local media in the Twin Cities and parts of Eau Claire and around the area also picked it up. How big of a deal was that to close that case after, was it 8 years?
Yeah. So again, it's a very unique case. Hit and run left two individuals dead on the highway, their families suffering, and that's really what this was about. It was for those victims and their families, and they are really the heroes of the story for
Mm-hmm.
being bold enough to go on camera and share their story. And it was kind of a plea for humanity, and that's where that video came into play. And the deputy who came up with that concept was awarded Deputy Sheriff of the Year through the National Sheriff's Association, and that was Andrew Vitalis. So very fortunate that, again, dedicated, hard-charging staff here at the Sheriff's Office that are willing to try anything and any innovation to solve their cases. So great outcome as far as we have the closure. It doesn't bring back the loved ones that were lost. It doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
and we also have the person responsible now sitting in prison,
Yeah.
and it holds him accountable. And I think there's a lot of lessons in cases like this. There is oftentimes no winners when we see the conclusion of a case. You don't feel as though anybody's a winner, but ultimately, if at the end of the day all the puzzle pieces are together and we have sealed that case up, that you can move forward, and that's what this was about: is moving forward as a
Right.
community.
So some of your other goals when you got elected, I just remembering you wanted to talk about mental health more, and also wanted to deal a little bit more with the drug epidemic in Polk County. So is it something that you can share as far as how you've dealt with mental health and the drugs inside of Polk County, or you want to bring an update? I know that you took a trip down to the border to see the crisis on the border as it relates to bringing drugs through to the United States. Maybe you can bring an update on those two items too.
Sure. So mental health is something that is very important to me personally, just because in a 27-year career in law enforcement, we see some of the worst case scenarios with mental health, and there were years when we had double-digit suicides. In fact, that was pretty common.
Hmm.
And I said we have to find a way as a community, and it is a tough thing to try to sort that out. But I will say this: in the last 4 years, I've tried to be have as much a role as I can in anything pertaining to mental health. In the past, prior to COVID, we did the suicide awareness walk. I was always a part of that. In fact, I was one of their guest speakers one year. This impacts so many people, and
Mm-hmm.
we still have a failure on how we deal with people in crisis, how we oftentimes have to transport them all the way across the state. That has not gotten better. I will say, hats off to the local resources in these counties, especially ours. We've had, we had a good run, 3 years of single digit suicides. Now this year, the trend is upward, and I'm concerned about that. But I think, when we went through one of the most uncertain times in our country with a pandemic and just a lot of turmoil in the country, I think that weighs heavy on people. But I like to constantly work with the mental health professionals in this county and make sure we're all working with each other and trying to work towards a goal of no suicides.
Absolutely. Uh, Suicide, a lot of times, is a mental issue that can be addressed and helped. There's suicide hotlines, there's counselors at school, there's agencies that are volunteers throughout the community. Many times it goes hand in hand with some type of drug use or some trauma that has been experienced, and every individual instance is its own story. But you've tried to tackle the drug epidemic in Polk County for the last 4 years. Where are we at with drugs, with meth? I know heroin's a big deal right now. As a firefighter, we see the Narcan being deployed by officers more and more. What's going on in Polk County with the drug use?
Yeah, you're right, Kirk. I mean, I carry Narcan in my squad because you just never know when you get these calls if you're in the right place at the right time. But and it can also be for our first responders and our deputies if they, it's no longer the. I often joke about the fact that when I started in this career, you see some evidence of narcotics, you would test them. And oftentimes we would test them on our squad room table, and that's a place where someone might later eat a sandwich, which I always thought was kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
But the drugs back then, you weren't in a position where it would likely kill you. Where you are now, we have had to change how we do things with this. It's fentanyl, is
Fentanyl, yeah.
what the real danger is, and that is directly related to our open border, to the fact that our border patrol is overwhelmed with catching the millions of people crossing and rounding up everybody coming across because it's a free for all down there, and now we have so much more of this stuff coming in, and it is so deadly. We even did a training here a while back because we had a car that had fentanyl in it, and we're like, well, what do we do with this car now? You got to be very cautious how you handle the substance.
Right.
So we had some hazmat people come in and teach us how to properly decontaminate a vehicle, and I think we had some fire guys and first responders involved in that as well. But it's definitely a new world with the dangers of the drug world and the fact that it can now one-time use, if it's got the wrong substance in it, can kill you, and that should be an eye opener for everybody.
Yeah, I just saw a post by the Barron County Sheriff uh, with, I think it was a penny or a nickel or something on a picture, and then a little touch of white powder, and it said fentanyl, and that's an overdose. And so the amount of fentanyl that will kill you or overdose you is just ridiculously small, and it's being mixed in with these other drugs, which is extremely concerning because what used to be somewhat of a normal procedure could turn into something where your officer or the individual first responder, paramedic could come in contact with that and literally go into an overdose within seconds. So Ben Dryden is watching, can't get away from it, but he says, would you rather have no drugs in Polk County or no OWIs?
All the above. All the above there, Ben. If we could have zero on both, but that's a tough question to answer. They're both detrimental. The OWI can affect everybody because it can be my family driving down the road that gets taken out. But the drugs are so detrimental to your society. So they're both a cancer in our society. They really are.
Yeah. So from the perspective of a law enforcement county-wide, how is this year relating or compared to other years for highway deaths or deaths, traffic accidents, UTV, ATV type accidents? Is 22 better than 20 or 21?
We're having a good year on our traffic deaths, although one is too many, and the families that get impacted by these, it's so heartbreaking. That's one of the hardest parts of this job is to see the tragic deaths. And Kirk, you as a fire guy, you see this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You're there trying to help these victims out, and it's heartbreaking. But we're having an above average year. Polk County is unfortunately one of the higher traffic death counties because we have such an influx of traffic go through here. But we've had 2 fatalities on our highways. Our average is 10. So we're getting to the middle of August. I really hope we can keep this trend going this year. Last year we had a below average year. I believe we had 7. So we've had a couple years that traffic death rate was lower than what we expected. But and I think that's good because we had a lot more traffic. With COVID, people were sticking around locally, and we had a lot of people that instead of traveling across country, were just coming to their cabins and hanging out locally. So I think we had more traffic and we had fewer deaths. So that's a positive.
Yeah, I guess a positive for me being on the fire department in St. Croix Falls um, because of where we are right on Highway 8 and because of the traffic that comes from the cities, we do see a lot of traffic accidents. And luckily, we don't see a whole lot of really bad traffic accidents. We do have a stoplight and a roundabout in town, and both of those have slowed the traffic down on Highway 8. Just last week, unfortunately, we had a motorcycle accident on 87 going up towards River Road. And we talked about this, but I want to just, from my perspective, both as the mayor and a firefighter to the sheriff, just want to thank you for your deputies and the professionalism that they have while on scene, and for everything that they do to make things less chaotic. They do a great job, and they work well with my guys in St. Croix Falls PD, who mutual aid to those calls. This happened to be just a little bit outside of the city, but collaboratively we worked really well. That was unfortunately a fatality after a few days, and that individual had probably 20 people working on him to save his life, and unfortunately he didn't survive after a few days in the hospital. So we obviously give condolences to him, but thank you, for training up your guys and what they do on scene. It really makes a difference.
Well, it is interesting to see a scene like that because everybody, I think the average citizen doesn't realize they see the red lights and they see we're going to something and you're going to something, and it's like, well, what is that about? Well, it is really, it's nice to see all hands on deck and how they work well together and accomplish that mission. But it is always heartbreaking when you see the end result is a fatality, and obviously my condolences go out to that family as well. They were connected to the Minneapolis area, but yeah, it is heartbreaking when these things happen. But the deputies, they get to those calls and they have so much to do. It's like you as a fireman too. You don't just stand there and dwell on the situation. You have a job to do. So you do your job, you do it well, and you hope for the best. And they don't always have the best outcome, but oftentimes they do have a fantastic outcome. That hard work that you guys do pays off, and the person makes a full recovery, and that's really the rewarding part of this career.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I'm going to just take a moment to remind people that Ben and Fitz have the day off today. I think Fitzy is at a training, and Ben is taking his day off to watch us perform, and hopefully it's working out. So I'm Kirk Anderson. I'm the mayor of St. Croix Falls, a firefighter and business owner, and I'm talking with Polk County Sheriff Brent Waak. And if you have any questions for either of us, feel free to ask them in the comments, and we'll try and answer them. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is the funds that are being spent in Polk County. A lot of individuals don't understand how much money it takes to run a county and the public safety sector of the county. Can you tell us a little bit about your budget? And I know that you had something called ARPA funds come in through the COVID relief packages and things like that, where those monies are spent and how they're benefiting the community.
Yeah, that's we're kind of getting into budget season right now, where we're working with the county officials to smooth it out. But yeah, the county received a lot of ARPA funds, several $1 million, and we were able to improve our radio system. We're in the process of doing that. We had like $1 million upgrade we needed to do to the microwave radio tower system here in Polk County, and then we also had the addition of another tower in Taylor's Falls to benefit the River Valley, and that is all in the works. We're dealing with the typical supply chain issues right now, where we can't get all the items necessary to get it going, but we're optimistic by the end of summer here, hopefully September, we can see the conclusion of those projects. But that was about $1.5 million spent. And people say, well, what does that do for us? Well, As you know, Kirk, being a fireman in St. Croix Falls and connected to the police department there, the radio communications are terrible because of the topography of St. Croix Falls. It's a river valley. So when you get downtown, the radio systems don't work very well. So working with our neighbors to the west, Chisago County, Minnesota, and Taylor's Falls, the city, we were able to get a spot on their water tower to put a tower to improve the communications. And that was about, I think, $350,000. And we were approved for that. So that has a big officer safety issue and also efficiency of getting resources to a problem in that whole river valley. So we're optimistic that's going to work well. That'll be a presser when we get that done. I think, we don't really cut a ribbon. I don't want to climb on top of a tower to cut a ribbon, Kirk. I don't know about you, but I'm not a heights guy. But
Yeah.
I think we should do something to roll that out when we get it concluded. But we're working with the company that is involved in that, and they're just waiting on some of the equipment. And once we get it, we'll be rolling.
Excellent. There were some rumors that maybe the sheriff's department would be able to finish off an area for some indoor training in the Justice Center. Is there anything on that is moving forward, or is that still stalled?
It's ultimately, Kirk. I can't justify the cost. When this building was built back in 2002, they had a spot for an indoor range, and they never equipped it. So we did some range estimates, and it's just the cost benefit for me as the person in charge of the sheriff's office. I can't justify the $1,000,000+ it would be to finish that. So that's off the table. I've asked that to not even be considered because it's just that's kind of a pipe dream. I would love to do it if there was some windfall of money, it'd be great. But I think there's better ways that will benefit more of the community to spend that money, and I've asked for that to be taken off.
So that is off the table, and then so your training then requires you to go off-site and close off like probably a gun range or something like that to do your training. And then how difficult is it to do that, to do like SWAT drills and some of that specialty training?
Well, we're fortunate. We have several gun clubs throughout the community here that are willing to work with us, and they let us use their facilities. But at the end of the day, it is a public facility, and there's always that safety concern. So we do post a security officer and put signs up that say police training in progress. It would be ultimate to have our own place to where we could just train. But it's working out for us just fine the way we do it.
Right.
Ultimately, it would have been nice to get that indoor range. As you know, half the year it's frozen in this country, so
Yeah.
to have an indoor place to train would have been nice. But at the end of the day, it's just too expensive.
Well, I know there is a lot of the cost in that would be because it's indoor, is the air filtration, stuff. It's not like you just throw a pile of dirt and some tires out there. You have to have quality backstops and safety precautions, but it's that indoor air quality, that filtration, that really gets the number up there. And I imagine that's a big part of the $1,000,000 is dealing with the EPA or whoever holds you accountable on air quality for whoever's shooting in there.
Absolutely. And then, we are attached to a jail, and so we soundproofing and just ventilation. It's a big project. It's disappointing that we couldn't do that 20 years ago when it probably would have been a couple $100,000, and now it's into the millions. So, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the same story in a lot of things. I think you see that same issue on some of the projects in St. Croix Falls. It's like if this would only have been done at the time.
Yeah. Do you have any other equipment purchases that you're excited about? I know that it might not even be ARPA funds, but that you've designated part of your budget to improving officer safety and transparency. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So yeah, we are still trying to get body cams here, and we did budget for it, and then we learned there was some potential for a grant. So we've been holding off this year so far, but we plan to move forward. The grant process was released recently, so we should have body cams by the end of the year, and that's just another tool. It doesn't replace the integrity of an officer. It's just another tool. It's another layer of protection
Mm-hmm.
for those officers out working every day. So we're moving forward with that. We've had a fantastic year at the sheriff's office with donations. We had the tribal council just earmarked $25,000 for us.
Mm-hmm.
Their part of their gaming compact was to donate to government entities, so they selected us this year. So we just received that. We had the Franzen Bank give us money to buy defibrillators for every vehicle we have here at the sheriff's office for life-saving measures. So that was close to $60,000.
Wow.
We had a donor. We had a donor on the state level that gave like 1.5 million, I think, to be split up with all the sheriffs. So we got some fancy equipment that went towards officer safety with that money. I think Ben covered some of that on previous shows. But yeah, we're really fortunate, and I'd like to stress that our community is very supportive of law enforcement up here in Wisconsin. We're blessed to live here, Kirk, to have public support with what we do, and we work really hard to keep that.
Yeah. Well, and I like the donations, from, being a mayor. I always tout that we're trying to keep your property taxes lower, and our budget for our police department is a large portion of our city budget, but it's a very important part of the city budget that we fight for every year. With the county, we have we have 5 or 6 officers. You have 30 or 35 officers. So when we buy body cams, it is extremely expensive for our small department. I can only imagine what it is when you're buying body cams for an entire sheriff's office or defibrillators and things like that. So when someone comes in and makes a donation, that's a really big part of savings for the community, for my pocketbooks as a taxpayer.
Absolutely. And again, I can't say enough about the generosity of the community up here. I don't like asking for funds because honestly, we already take your tax dollars, but we have so many people that are generous and come forward. And it's even the little things, Kirk. Occasionally a church group drops off some treats for the deputies, and just a handwritten note from some school kids saying, "Hey, thank you for what you do." That carries so much weight and has such positive. And we're on Positive Tuesday, so we got to mention this, but it has such a positive impact on the men and women in the law enforcement arena.
Yeah, you had mentioned before, and I've seen pictures in the past that you do something called Shop with a Cop. And that's a huge deal for law enforcement. I think they've even included some firefighters and some EMS folks too. That's coming up soon as we approach the Christmas season. What does that entail, and what do you anticipate with that?
Yeah, we're doing that tomorrow.
Oh, it's already tomorrow. Well,
and it's
timely.
Excuse me. It's back to school shopping with a bunch of great kids in our community, and so many partners make this thing happen. And it really is a special thing to do, and to walk around and get some of these kids outfitted for school is a lot of fun. It's good for the officers. I'll be there myself because I just enjoy that event. And, thanks to the businesses that help us out with that. And
yeah, where do those funds come from? Is that donations that come in that you're able to designate, and how much per kid are you able to spend?
It's pretty considerable. You walk around Walmart with these kids, and they get nicely outfitted. We try to get them some shoes and some brand new school clothes, and it's just a fun way to spend some of that money. And it's Salvation Army is a big part of that, as well as Walmart, letting us in there to do that. And it's a great community event. And it's just one of those neat things that goes along with the job. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today, Kirk, is retention and recruitment of employees. And this is part of the job that it's hard to quantify on an application or on a job posting. The neat things we get to do as law enforcement. These kids look at you when you're in your uniform as heroes, and for us, it's just the day-to-day job we do. And this is a great chance to leave a lasting impression. And I always tell people that kid that we take school shopping might be the next law enforcement officer. He might have such a great experience and say, "Hey, when I get older, that's what I want to do." So It's a win-win for everybody involved.
That's awesome. Do you know how many kids about you are able to pull in? And is this just the sheriff's department, or am I correct that I've seen pictures of throughout Polk County that a lot of different agencies participate? Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. It's many of the law enforcement agencies. Your St. Croix Falls, Osceola, Luck, Frederick. I mean, we've had a lot of agencies, and I don't want to skip any of them. So just for being a politician here, all the law enforcement entities in Polk County are fantastic to come in and help with this. But
Yeah.
we really do have uh, great a great system. We've had high numbers of kids for this, and it's all pre-set up, and this is all well run, and we show up and we go shopping, and it's
Sure.
really fun for everybody involved. It's just a lot of fun.
Well, you can look at that. You can look at those photos on the sheriff's department's website. I think you post them there. Talk a little bit. We have just a couple minutes left before we are done with our show. Talk about where you're at with. You talked about hiring. There's 3 agencies that I see consistently being talked about on your Facebook page: sheriff deputies, jailers, and dispatchers. All 3 really important parts. But you're asking for hiring opportunities on there. Is there a need for any of those positions? Are you currently filled, or are you still looking for new officers, jailers, or dispatchers?
If it's not posted, it's kind of interesting. It means we're in the process of hiring, and we really are constantly hiring. And I want to point out, Kirk, when we're full staffed, we're about 89 employees here at the sheriff's office. It's all hands on deck to make this. We're a big team. We have the jail, we have the communication center, we have support staff, we have deputies. It takes everybody to make this place function, and it seems like we're always in the process of hiring. The jail is very competitive. It's gotten to be this game of trying to entice everybody else's employees to come work for you, and you hate to do that to a fellow sheriff, but you want to be competitive, and so we're always fighting that battle. And I can tell you that we're doing okay. We're always a few positions short, and the hard part for this is when you're short staffed, then you're stressing the ones that are your dedicated long-term employees that have always worked hard, and now they're stressed because their time off is harder to get, and so it really has a negative impact when you're short staffed. And when we have 89 employees, it's hard to keep that number up there. We're always a couple positions short in the jail, so we're actually in the process. Again, we'll be doing interviews the end of the month for that. But I would tell anybody interested in an adventure in life, this is a great career. This is to work in the North Woods, to get paid and live in a place where people come to vacation is a great opportunity. And we do have great public support. And this is an exciting job. You see some of the craziest things on a Friday, Saturday night in Polk County working in law enforcement.
Yeah, I just think it's an amazing area to live, work, and play. That's kind of our mantra here in St. Croix Falls for our chamber, and for being the mayor and always trying to get people to come here and be a tourist. And I can't think of a better place for someone to be a law enforcement officer and be able to work in a very supportive environment with individuals in the community that actually love and appreciate you, with a small percentage of those who don't. But by and large, the law enforcement in our area is appreciated, and then on your days off, you get to go fishing or hiking or boating, whatever your hobbies are. This is the most beautiful place to spend your time. And so, yeah, I think it's great. And I know it's hard for us to come up and find new recruits. The number of applicants when we're looking for a police officer in St. Croix Falls is quite a bit lower than it has ever been. But I'm hoping that as things kind of turn around after COVID and some of the political negativity towards law enforcement in general, that new recruits will be interested in that job, and we'll see a resurgence in enthusiasm for helping in communities. Any final thoughts on that, Brent?
Well, I just think we're at a tipping point. I think it has to come up because it's hit the bottom. So I'm really optimistic that all these things we're doing will eventually pay off in the long term. That we see some of these younger high school kids think, hey, this sounds like a great opportunity. We just finished a couple weeks ago the Polk County Fair. We try to, I think close to 40,000 people go through the fair. So we try to leave a good impression on everybody walking through the fair. We display a lot of our neat equipment, and we have a lot to offer here in the county. And we've made some videos promoting what we do, trying to showcase what we do here. So it's a kind of a last ditch effort. If as society, if we don't fix this, we're in trouble, because we need, as you know, Kirk, we need somebody to come out when you're in a crash and help you out of that vehicle. We need firemen, EMS, cops. We're all suffering shortages. It's not just law enforcement. But then when you throw in there that politically we've been kind of smeared in the last several years, that makes it even harder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't even imagine after seeing the last 2 years of negativity and really the assault on police officers to some degree. And thank goodness that we don't see a lot of that here in Polk County or even in just Wisconsin, on this side of Wisconsin. But every day there's stories that come out of the harassment and the abuse that officers take. So, we give a lot of, appreciation to you and your men and women who do a very difficult job. And really, you're, like firefighters, but to a much higher degree, you are seeing people in their worst circumstances and dealing with them in their worst crises a lot of times. And therefore you're going to see the worst parts of them, but also you get to see the best parts of people and how they handle it and how those can be resolved. So with that, I really appreciate everything that you're doing. Let's see if there's any questions. Ben has been trolling us, and he's just trying to get me to smile on camera. I'll answer this one, Ben. I did see your other questions, but yes, I'm ignoring you. Sheriff, when was the last time you issued a speeding ticket? Do you still issue those speeding tickets?
I don't do a lot of the speeding tickets. I do make a few traffic stops here and there when I'm out and about. But ironically, I have recently asked the captain here if I could get a radar put into my squad, because, I'm stealth mode. I can drive around in this unmarked Dodge truck, and, people, it's kind of comical when I do stop people. They're always surprised. I've been out on county roads and someone blows past me, and I'll make a stop. But yeah, I don't do a lot of that anymore. Again, with 89 employees in the jail and the dispatch and in the patrol aspect, my time gets pretty divided. So I don't get that opportunities to run out there. And I would say that, I did about 25 years of writing speeding tickets. So to sum it up, Ben, probably not going to get a speeding ticket from the sheriff if you come to Polk County. But the deputies, they're always out there trying to keep our roads safe.
All right. All right. Well, we made it. And we're actually a couple minutes over the normal time. But for Polk County Sheriff Brent Waak, I'm Kirk Anderson, and you've been watching Positive Tuesdays, presented by Professional Exteriors and Interiors. With nearly 20 years of experience, this locally owned and operated business provides quality work on both sides, on the outside and inside of your home or business. So give Brian a call today at 715-520-2271. I want to give a special thank you to our guest today, Polk County Sheriff Brent Waak, for coming on the show and joining in for a chat. And I also want to thank Ben for the opportunity to host the show, and for Chris for allowing Brent to take the co-host chair. Thank you for sharing your positive comments on today's show. And we all know that it's the little things that make a big difference. You guys have a great day, and we will see you out there.